All right, hope everybody's doing good. We are here with a bass player and musician here in Kansas City, Bret Boule. How you doing?
Good, Rob.
Thanks for coming, man.
Absolutely.
We're going a double decker tonight. I just had Brandon Hutsmith in here, so thanks for coming, man. Um, so where I met you was Jerry's,
Yes.
obviously, and I was always impressed, and I'd love to get to those guys here in a minute, but I was always impressed with your guys' just amount of crap that you know. You know, the amount of songs that you guys have. I mean, your book is substantial.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really, it always impresses me the amount of stuff that you guys can just pull out of your butt at all times, you know. And so I've always been really impressed by your playing and just the act of letting Scotty, you know, who's just an absolute monster, do his thing, but he can't do that without you guys holding it down.
Right.
He sounds like crap, you know. I mean, because nobody knows where he's going, and you guys know where he's going, you know. So I've just always been impressed by playing, man. Yeah. So like for a lot of people know you obviously from Jerry's and from the last couple of years of being a gigger or whatever, but. Tell us a little bit about how you got started playing or whatever.
Well, I've been in Kansas City all my life, and I started with piano lessons in probably about 6th or 7th grade, and I wound up taking piano lessons for 7 years. I'm from a musical family. I mean, my mom played as a kid. My dad continued to play saxophone for 25 years in an area community band, and he recently quit with the band, but you know, still plays at home every once in a while. I've had a couple different uncles. One local that was gospel and country, you know, old school. He'd go around and play and all that. And another uncle out on the East Coast that was he was the church pianist and so forth. So, you know, I come from that, but I had piano lessons as a kid for about 7 years. Got kind of, I don't want to say bored with it, but it was not, you know, being that age. Obviously, you're teenage and you're growing up and you're, you know, getting that rock scene or that, you know, whatever music scene you are getting into at that time. And so the piano just wasn't doing it for me, and I wasn't putting rightful effort into it to justify mom and dad paying for it. So and not to mention it was kind of hard. I mean, and this is a little while ago, you know, but it was a lot harder finding a band at that age when you weren't driving than it is these days. That's one crazy thing that we notice a lot, you know, especially hosting the jam and so forth. But so I wound up quitting the piano, bought my first guitar. I wasn't even old enough to drive, as I remember my folks took me to get my guitar, and so I just started strumming on my own, learning some chords, and I finally was in a band probably around the age of 19 or 20, and I was playing keyboards. And this is the story of how did you get to play bass? Right. Well, you know, it was okay, you know, a little 4-piece band and some, you know, cool pop, you know, rock music we were playing and all. But the bassist broke his wrist, and the guys looked at me and they said, "Well, you know the notes on the guitar, right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I can, you know, I know my notes. I can play some chords and different things." And they're like, "Well, Craig's going to let you borrow his bass, so you go ahead and use that bass." And so it was partially the freedom of not being stuck in one place, because, I mean, you know me, I'm all over the stage, right? But it was also the freedom of what I think is being a substantial part of the music and holding that rhythm section down, and because I've played in a lot of 3-piece bands where I'm the only guy when that guitar player's off doing his thing, you know, obviously with the drummer, and so, you know, that takes a fair amount of work and creativity, which I thrive on, and so, you know, kind of then and there, around the age of 20, I was probably 19. That's when I really fell in love with playing the bass, and that's what I've been doing for the most part for all these past years.
That's great, man. Yeah, we've talked about that on the show a lot too, of the kind of role of each instrument, and I find that fascinating. And especially for myself, I talk about like being sort of like the horn player of the band, where I'm not the foundation whatsoever. I'm like the color on top, you know. So talking to drummers and bass players is fascinating to me, because they can add some color, but that's not their main thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm more like the wide receiver or something, and they're the lineman, sort of, you know, football analogy. And so talk about that, about how important that is for you to have it kind of pretty freaking locked down.
I would love to. Yeah. Because with that, I have, and granted, I've obviously been in a couple bands with, it's been 4-piece, but it's just been the vocalist that didn't play guitar or anything. So it's essentially still a 3-piece, and it is, it's really night and day between that 3-piece, that one guitar, one bass, and drums. Mm-hmm. Then going to another band that either adds a guitar and or a keyboard, and it's and I've played with very few, and it's of that kind of band of bigger bands and so forth, and it's kind of night and day, and I hate to say it, but it gets a little boring, and not on the fact of me needing to overplay all the time, because I try not to do that. I try to put in what needs to be there at the particular time. Right. And, I think that's what any musician does, whether you're playing in a 3-piece or a 5-piece. Like you say, you're going to put that color over there when nothing else is going on. You're not stepping on anybody's toes. Right. And that's what makes, you go back and listen to some... because I'm doing this petty thing, and you go back and you really break that music down, and you really think there's so much going on, but you step back and there's really not. It's crazy how how simplistic some things like that are, but it's because a particular instrument has a role, they play a signature lick and so forth, or whatever they do, but they do it on their own time, and they're in their own space.
Right. So. The one that cracks me up about him is that let me get to the point. Let's roll that song.
Right.
God, there is nothing in that song, Right. And then you just hear
yeah.
That's a perfect example, and there's nothing in that song, and it's so awesome because there's so much space, it like hurts you, it's like it's anxiety. There's so much space in that song, and like so you would say that so that was interesting. You talked about it being more boring. Like, so you're talking about with more people, it's that's interesting.
Well, and it's probably because where I come from is, having the challenge and having to fill up that space, so sometimes it's like, wow, I really got to work hard to make, some texture underneath the single note, not doing the, single note solo type of work from the guitar player and all that. And I hate saying it's boring, but you can't be as active, because you just kind of do. Now, there are some songs that some people would just consider a bored out of their mind as a straight driving, eighth note chug type of thing. It depends on the song, though. Right. It always depends on the song. Right. It really does.
Sure. Yeah,
because there can be busy ones that can be boring,
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But then, like there can be some very simplistic ones that you just love playing because you can feel so much passion. There's so much space or whatever it is. There's so much passion that you can put into that with some very simple things.
Right. I've found that for myself, and this is kind of the framework that I'm trying to lay out of kind of levels of musician, and in my opinion, you get the first level of that you're trying to even do it, like rhythm wise, you're trying to even figure out how the heck to do a shuffle. Then you have that next level, I think, of the kind of touch and the tone and the dynamics. That's kind of the next level of musician, like, and all you guys understand that. Bring down, come up, give it some touch. But then you have that other, especially in the improv world, that other one of knowing how much and when to play is kind of the third level. And that's what I know that for myself, that I don't know if I do it well, but I know that I'm thinking about that. Like the entire show, every second of the show, I'm going like, no, not this one. Okay, end of the first verse. Okay, my little Okay, hold out second verse, second half. Okay, and I'm going like yes, no, And so what I found is that, like, because you were talking about and this is generalizing, do people generally have a problem with needing to find stuff to play, or is it a lot harder to go, to hold back? I would argue that I think it's a lot harder for people to hold back than it is to give it.
Well,
what do you think about that? Is it?
I mean, given the skill level, I mean, I think that's a good summary of it though, because once you learn how to play 5,000 notes in a song, after you learn how to do that and maybe do that a time or two, then you learn, like you just said, oh, maybe I don't need to play so many, so that or they go in this empty spot right here and they don't step on this here and they don't step on that. So that's I agree with that. That's a good way to.
But that's a good point, because the really, the lower people that are just barely trying to boom, ding, ding, boom, boom, and that's all they got. I mean, right now, and that's fine.
And that's fine.
They are where they are. I guess that you're right. Those people wouldn't have a trouble with laying there, because that's all they got. So they're gonna have trouble
and that's the beginner, and that's maybe their challenge is, to make sure they're on rhythm, or just simply hitting the right notes, and learning their chord forms, or their the infamous number system, or whatever, however they're learning their music. So that's their challenge at the time.
Yeah. So speaking of like rock and specifically, we've had a lot of guys talk about blues and jazz on the show. What is it that, I don't know, I can't speak for yourself, but for me, who's played kind of quite a bit of different kinds of music, it is absolutely fascinating to me about the different things that are hard about each genre. It cracks me up more than it, because classical people don't improv at all, but the playing is like a page for a year, I mean, the technique is out of control. Right. But there's some other things about improv. Why are they peeing their pants up on the stage? Because they get, there's different things that are hard because they can't improv, So like, what have you found is like something tricky about rock? But that might surprise people.
I don't know, probably form, as in, I mean, if you compare it to blues, your chord progressions are pretty standard. You may or may not have a bridge, which goes somewhere else. And I mean, I know all these things cross over, but I think you're given some left turns in rock, maybe with bridges, with tension notes. Speaking from a bassist, I mean, you get them anywhere, but tension notes. Like last night, we did a Foo Fighters song, and I hear them talking about it. It's like, I never thought about that, but it's like first one chorus, two choruses, and then three choruses. So it's like these little, it's these number things that happen with rock. They happen with a lot of things, but that's
what I would say too, is the structure stuff, because sometimes it's like a half riff, right? And you have the original intro riff, and then before this chorus is just half of a,
or how many times is there half a bar before the next verse comes in vocally? We joke about that all the time, that gets missed by a lot of people. Yeah,
I think in rock too, there's a lot of like stops and stuff.
Yeah,
or like a bump, bump, bow at the end of a thing. Well, in blues, we're just, you kind of just plow through the whole song, and then the ba da ba ba da da, and then you're done. And then but like the drummer, for example, is just. But in rock, there's all these like stops and extra little. dee da ba 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 ba, and then you go like. That really surprised me. I'd forgotten about that when I kind of dove back into rock. But the structure is, I agree with that.
But there's plenty of different playing styles, too. I mean, there's there's a fair amount of rock out there that it's really just blues, or it's just blues based, But then there's other things that just playing style. I mean. Obviously, talking about some of the more infamous bass players and so forth. I mean, if you look at, say, John Paul Jones could play from blues style to a lot of tension notes to syncopated riffs because Robert Plant was all over the place, and then you look at, say, Flea style, all
slapping
all that, and maybe that's what one thing you get with rock is, you don't have the intensity of jazz, let's say, and you don't have, and this is by no means putting it down, but you don't have the predictability of blues, but you get lavishly different styles. Different styles, different speeds, different catches in the song that you got to be aware of. So,
well, that's what people like about country is the predictability. And it's not even a put down to them. It's not.
Well, yeah,
that's what they want.
Oh, right.
They want the predicament, and that's why people don't like classical or don't like jazz because what the hell is going on? But I totally agree with that. The structure thing is probably, and like country, in my opinion, is kind of what we were talking about before, where the hard part is to just sit there. They have like for all the people that are pretty good and they know what they're doing is that just boom, 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 and the half that you have to just stay there and like you want to kill yourself,
what though? Yeah, but on that, I mean, and that's one of the music, one type of music I grew up on was that old classic country, and I love it, and it is as simplistic as you can get. I mean, bass wise, there can be a lot going on with other instruments sometimes and so forth. But those songs tell such stories, and so I think I don't know if it was before we started taping or not, but I talked about passion that comes out in your music, and it's like I'll sit there and I'll play that 1/5 all song long because that song brings a lot of passion out, and granted it's nostalgic for me because that's what I grew up with, and I like that old classic stuff. But that's one thing that I guess personally gets me through that kind of music. Yeah, it's predictable, but man, it's enlightening and it feels so good to play that.
Oh
stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So
yeah, that's great, man. So let's move to the jam now. I love your guys' jam. I think it's so much fun.
Thank you. Yeah.
And like it's really unique for town too. There's quite a few blues jams. There's some jazz ones, but your guys is about the only one, and that does kind of a very unique thing. And I think one of the strengths of it is obviously like your song list is ridiculous. I mean, you guys got this 500 or whatever number it is, but you guys can kind of come up and anybody calls from 1950 on not a Rush not a Rush rock song, and you guys can pretty much do it and talk about your jam a little bit.
Well, yeah, it's the longest running Kansas City rock jam, and about 16 and a half years now.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, Scotty McBee and Justin Collette were two of the main guys that started that. That would have, I mean, geez, man, that's 2002.
Yeah,
that's
wow.
crazy. And I walked into that, and it's funny because I was playing in a 3-piece called Voodoo Kitchen, and we were covering B-sides of late 60s, and the artists that everybody loved, but the songs that you had to have the albums and know the artists and all that. And my brother-in-law had told me about it. I think I'd looked it up and we discussed it and then didn't get to it or this and that. And then one day Kelly and I just popped into it, and I remember that first song I played up there with those guys. And
what was the first song?
it was Little Wing by Hendrix. Yeah,
cool. Good old tried and true,
yeah.
Or whatever.
And so that then it obviously we started going every week, and I remember at that time I was doing a happy hour gig with Jason Kane, and I think I was up in the Northland doing that, and I'd come from a 5 to 8 to come down to do that gig,
It was fun.
And I mean obviously it had been rolling for about a year, and the crowd started increasing, and gear started to be purchased and upgraded and some different things like that. And so before long it was it became obviously a weekly routine that we had repeat people, and there was so much drive for that jam. I mean, honest. I'm not.
What do you mean, like the people?
Well,
wanted to
just
come, or?
Just Mike and John, the guys that own the bar. Were reaching out across the United States,
Wow.
and we would literally get, and we still do. We get people that, they're musicians and they come through town and they're looking for a jam night, and they somehow find us.
Mm-hmm. That's how you do it.
And so we meet people from all over the place. And but I guess to get back to it though, with the songbook, it used to be 3 or 4 inch 3-ring binders full of paper lyrics, and then they'd be like this at the end of nights and stuff like that. And so now we're blessed with the tablets and all that. But just hosting the jam and having hundreds of people come through, and everything from obviously your standard rock band or blues or whatever came through to instruments. We get a fiddle every once in a while. We've had bagpipes. We've had lap steel. We've had probably
that's
pretty
cool.
Horns every once. We've had close to everything.
Candace will bring her steel
it
pans,
brings steel drum. And so so all those years we've kept track of what we play, and we've cataloged it. Back in the day, we were creating those Word files and printing those papers, and now we're still doing the same thing, but and we put them on our tablets, and then now we don't have the lyrics because it wasn't in the book, and we call it up on the Wi-Fi. And so that's, it's just years and years of that show. And we were doing it in Lee Summit for about 5 years.
I came up to a couple of those in Lee Summit.
So 2 days a week and a good, say, 15 people a night, that would come up. So that's one way that we've been fortunate to catalog that much material. We've been very fortunate to meet that many people. Obviously, we know how Scotty plays, and the crazy ear that he plays with,
Well, he's a nutcase.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like,
Scotty, you're a nutcase.
Yeah, Yoda. But if we are more so on him, but if we're at least familiar with a song and never played it, we usually can get our way through it. Usually,
right?
Sure. A lot of times, and that's someone's just got to be familiar with the song.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because then we joke around. Well, we just had practice, and so
right.
and maybe that person will come back next week. There's another thing I want to get to on the jam, but maybe they'll come back next week, and then all of a sudden we've added another song.
Yeah, right.
And we obviously get people that hit us up on, they message us and all that stuff and say, hey, I've got a new song I've been practicing, I want to try it out, And so whether it's in the book and whether we knew it or not, we may have to do some prep, before the show to host that song for him.
Like when I send Scotty Country Roads and he sends back lame. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Hey Scotty, let's do this totally lame song. And he's like,
sometimes we get
lame.
overwhelmed and have had 4 gigs and get 8 people hitting you up on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, I know. And that's a thing that's been interesting for me, because like I'll see your guys' book and for myself, just because I'm selfish, I want to come, especially with my violin, I want to like try to really impress some people, and already have this weird freaking violin.
Yeah.
But then I also want to call some stuff that you guys have never done, but that puts me in an annoying spot because I don't want to draw, like you just said, I don't want to, this isn't freaking homework time, I don't want to give you guys hard-ass music that you're, and make all this work for you guys, and so,
but
I'm trying to be,
we within reason we try to compensate as best we can.
Mm-hmm.
There's some times that we can't get to it, or sometimes we get forced into it on the spot, which is fine because maybe one of us worked on it and one of us didn't, but that's that may lead a little bit to where I wanted to go with it, because you're interviewing me, but but is I talked about meeting the people and stuff, and so you get those people that come out almost religiously, and it's their social outlet, or for those that don't play, or those that are playing, it's their one chance a week, that they're able to get out and play and all that stuff. So it's one of the coolest things I see with, especially when you get somebody that's new, the statement I think I love the most is, wow, I've never sung with a live band before. Mm. I just love that. Mm. And they were so excited. So
because it's awesome.
We joke we don't have that ball running across the lyrics and all that stuff, or but that's the vocalist. And then you get the same with the players. So
yeah, so on that, like we've been talking about on the show, some great things that happen with jams, and some stuff that for myself, I'll just say this, that we all see stuff that happens, nobody calls the person out, and then we go to the back of the bar and we're like bitching, man. So I'll get to that in a second. But one thing that I love about your guys' jam, and it feels to me like it's run pretty smooth. When I go up on stage, Scotty has, he's standing there with a cord. I was joking when my parents came the other day. They were like, I was joking with them, and because you guys are like, da-da-da's on deck and da-da in the hole, and I was joking with them, I'm like, yeah, see, if 35-year-olds ran the world, this is what it'd be like. I was like, I guess I was joking, I'm like, this is all you need. This is what you do, but you guys have your booklets ready. You're getting immediately the house band music comes on between songs. Craig's up there pumping up the crowd. Like everything is just like ridiculously smooth, and I really appreciate that with your guys' jam.
That's what it is. That's how it started, and that's what we've kept alive with that jam. We try to compensate as best we can, and that means that we compensate for the player and the singer, but it's also a show for the people that don't play, because there's plenty of them out there. Like you just said, you brought your parents. Well, they want to be, they're excited to see you and all that, but they wouldn't want a minute of dead space, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a killer on a gig. And then you get done and everybody hum-haws around till the next player comes up. That's not, and especially in today's day and world, attention span is like that, right? But we've always done that. We have always tried our best to keep the show rolling. We say, hey, 2 songs, and then we've been through 10 people. and you know, someone asks you, hey man, can I play again? And it's like, we got 5 more people we want to get through because we want to give an even chance to people. You know, we'll do some stuff if someone's got to leave early every once in a while, or they get one chance, or they're maybe brand new and they went to the effort to bring their 5-piece band.
Right.
And all their relatives are at the you know,
right.
Give them some extra songs or whatever. But that's what we try to do, man. It's just we try to. It's an entertainment show, and we love showcasing the people that come out and participate in that.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the main reasons we just like to keep that rolling.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And like you said, I think that's 100% accurate that you guys, because that's one problem I think us jammers have, is we always want it to be happy fun time for us because we see it as our time, you know. But Craig said the same thing, and Scotty said the same thing, Guy said the same, you know, and you're right in there with them as that, you know. Well, this is also a show, you know. I mean, this is also for the 30 people sitting out there, and you guys, and like you said, with that minute of dead space, because we're going from War Pigs to minute of dead space, you know, intense nothing, you just can't do that, right? I mean, Craig does a great job of like still talking over the, you know.
Right.
I don't see a lot of people doing that too.
Right.
Keeping them, hey, our drink specials, you know, I mean,
right.
You see.
Yeah.
So with the jammers, we've been talking a lot about, you know, some stuff that is really great about Kansas City, but, you know, we've talked a lot on the show about some frustrations that a lot of us have with some of the open jams. Is there, you know, obviously if you don't want to call anybody out, that's probably wise, but you know, but I will, but is there something that you wish you could see in general at your jam, or is there any, or jams in general in
like
town?
in the way people act?
Anything, you know, you know, I'll give you an example. It's funny to me when I have a singer come up there and they're like, well, what song do you want to sing? And they're like, this song. And then at the blues jams, this happens a lot. Well, what key? Well, I don't know. You know, it's like the kind of the cluelessness stuff. Is one frustration I have in general of people understanding that, you know, maybe I'll have this all the time. The guitar player will come in and they'll be like, oh, violin, oh, that would be so good with my singer-songwriter, you know, and like, okay, and then the guy's like, yeah, so I kind of wrote this song, like, in the parking lot, all right, here we go, you know, and it's like, really, dude, you know, you wrote this, like, in the parking lot, you know, I'm joking, but you wrote this, like, 2 days ago, and you're performing it, like, right now? You didn't go practice this for a month and get it down, and then get up onto it, you know, that kind of stuff would be mine, it kind of... You know?
The first, before you started giving those examples, I think one of the first things that came to mind, and you said it, was preparedness. But it's obviously it's not a shot at, you know, the guy that's getting his feet wet. It is... I think it's maybe it's not prepared. It's more. I think it's more of a respectfulness. It is, you know, I don't care how bad you are or how good you are. But if you think that somebody owes you something, and I'm not saying that in a egotistical way at all. But it's the guy or the person that is either hounding you to get up, or, you know, like you say, which I wish more people would observe. People observe how it goes. You know, they observe the guy talking, and maybe they didn't catch the spiel at the beginning, but they observe that, hey, everybody's playing 2 songs, you know, type of thing. They observe that we may go from some dance selections, and then we might bring the acoustic guy up by himself. We're going to do that because that's what a show does, right? You're going to get a variety of entertainment. So I think I think it's the, the sorry don't owe you anything factor, and we're more than happy to give you an opportunity to do whatever you want to do, but work with us, type of,
Right.
That's
Right.
kind of the thing. I mean, obviously tons of examples and so forth, but we've had music teachers will bring in their students, and so maybe that was happening once a month, and you're preparing for a week, not necessarily music wise, because the teacher was usually picking stuff out of our book that for these kids to play, and they could be anywhere from say 8 years old to a teenager or whatever, but it was planned. So even though you've got 6, 8, or 10 young kids and teenagers, like we talked about a little while ago, it still rolled like a show. It was prepared. The guitar teacher didn't act like we owed him an hour and a half for his students to play, and then I know we're diverting, but we said
all right.
we could do that,
Right.
man.
Good.
Many things on that. It's like, when I know I'm a little older than you, but when we were kids, when I was a kid, we didn't have nearly opportunities like that. I mean, get into a bar and play music at the age of 13, 15, 19, it wasn't happening back then. And so you get parents that bring their kids to do that, and I don't have kids, and so we don't know necessarily how that looks with the other parents or whatever, but they're giving that kid an opportunity to play music, and that that is really cool. So just the fact of parents bringing the kids to increase their participation in the Kansas City music scene.
Right.
I mean,
And the
that's
experience for sure is
yeah.
huge.
But I guess I'm sorry. Where I was going with that is, then the parents are so thankful to the hosts for having their kid up to play. That
Right.
there's no
That's
words
neat.
for that, man.
Yeah. And a perfect example is what's her face's parents, Jessie.
Jess.
Yeah, Jess.
Exactly.
I mean, her
Of course.
parents are like, you guys don't have to do this. They know it, I mean, they're respectful people, and they come in and they've seen what this is, and they're very observant, and they get what this is now, and they
Right.
And you said something else interesting about the kids coming in, because I've seen a lot, like you were saying, Jessie, and now she's had a handful of these high schoolers that are trying this out and stuff, and I thought that was interesting on my point of, when I brought 2 of my students out to jams, I didn't bring them to your guys, but I brought them to a jazz and a blues jam. And what we did for like 2 months before that is they would go learn like 5 songs, and I'm like, okay, when you get up there, they're gonna pick 3 of these. So I was like, you're not gonna know which ones you're gonna play. They're gonna tell you right now, but you're not gonna know. You're not gonna get to choose your songs, because that's kind of sometimes what happens.
Right.
But we are going to practice etiquette. You're gonna, we're gonna practice soloing, like with a backing track. And when I do my solo, you're gonna stand there, and do nothing.
Right.
You're not gonna play over other people. You're gonna be watching for the ends of the songs. You're gonna, so I tried to do that with my students, and I think that even like you were talking about, it was still smooth with the kids coming in, and I think that's the stuff that annoys me. Is when people don't understand what this is,
Right.
And
I mean, that's a very descriptive, if not the perfect word, is etiquette.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's on stage or off. You got the guy banging down your clipboard. That's not etiquette. But you get. I mean, and the offset of that is, it's not that when that happens you're like finally relieved that it actually did. It is just the essence of it happening. I mean, because like I talked about the person earlier that was the first time that they'd sung with band. We've had many dozens,
Right.
dozens of those.
Yeah.
You know, if not hundreds, maybe. I don't. You know, and because you can tell where it comes from, and you can tell where that comes from with parents, and you know they got that shy little 9-year-old kid that doesn't say anything, but man, those parents are gloating all over that and showing their appreciation.
You're right, they're sitting there, they're so proud,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so etiquette.
Right.
That's probably one of the biggest. That's probably one of my biggest things with the jam night and with hosting the jam night. You know, so.
Yeah, cause like, and we always, somebody even like myself who's now been to kind of quite a few, even though I'm young, I've been to 200-300 open jams since I've been to town, and now we all get it, you know. There's that first, you have to have your first day, you know, and everybody you've got to suck like 10 times, and we all absolutely, and you guys do a fantastic job of this, of letting that happen. You have to let that suckage happen for a while, and you've got to let them get up there. And so those aren't the people I'm talking about. You know, that's not who I'm talking about, you know, obviously.
And
you
you
know?
encourage that person.
Yeah. I'm talking about the guys that are, you know, they've been here 20 times and they still don't really understand what this is.
Yeah.
That's the annoying, but, you know, the cluelessness is the word I've kind of come up with on the show. But anyway, you were talking before we started about the idea of the jams, but in general, our scene in general. And you were talking about kind of the rock scene here in town. Can you just talk a little bit about what we kind of got going here?
Well, we kind of talked about how
bit,
I think there's pockets, which is fine. I think there's pockets of style. There's pockets of age. There's pockets of the clubs you play at, the circuit you play on, stuff like that. But even though that is there, I think that there's enough awareness, especially if you've been here long enough and worked enough, that there's an awareness of kind of who does what. You know, I mean, you could always find somebody if you needed to. You could always usually find a sub player, which I know we'll get into that probably. I guess that's kind of where I started. I started doing. When I was in, early 20s, like 20, we would do some private events and so forth, but we were just doing little cover bar stuff, nothing fancy. Then I got into more of a, and you alluded to going into this too, but I got into an original rock band, and I knew we weren't out to conquer the world, but that's where I was, and we wrote our own music, and we played those $60 shows, and and we're pretty active in it, and it was fun, and there's still obviously there's pockets like that. That are not only supporting that local music, but they're also bringing, either has-beens or up-and-coming bigger names through town, places in Westport and stuff like that. There's so many, this city is so big and there's so much music, there's so many things you could do. I mean, you could go be a cover band in a bar and work all the time and make your money doing that. You could focus on weddings. You could focus on being a hard rock opener for the bands that are coming in town and picking your, handful of bars, not necessarily my bank of knowledge as to what's still out there. I know some that are still out there, and I'm sure there's new ones that I don't know about, but if that's what you want to do, then do that. I mean, there's just all kinds of, the city's rich in tribute bands, and there's
been more recently. I haven't noticed that when I got into town.
And I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a nationwide thing, if it's maybe it's obviously with the 60s and 70s, and granted there's so much influential music across all decades and so forth. But if you get past Elvis and start looking into the rock scene and the psychedelic era and all that stuff, there's so many impactful players that obviously aren't around anymore, and even ones within decades that followed that aren't around anymore. And a lot of those listeners are still alive, and they want the live experience of seeing something that can replicate that closely. And so that may be a reason why the tribute thing is happening.
That's interesting that you said that, because I think that I think you might be onto something there about the nationwide word with this whole idea of what's happened in the last, I don't know, 15 years, of our popular music. And boy, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think anything beats 70s. Like, there was so many good bands and like that destroys every decade of music. I think it's not even close. And I still think even in the 90s there was still some really good stuff going on. Nirvana, STP, there's still some bands, Whitney Houston. I mean, there's still some good music out there, but I wonder if this tribute thing, and I believe this is maybe the same element that you guys bring, is that you guys do all sorts of 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s stuff. Well, that's not current.
Right.
And why is that so popular? Well, maybe there's something, there's this big old hole there, that people are still, that's why people still listen to 101 The Fox, and why they still, want to hear this Sweet Home Alabama all day, I wonder if there's something to that.
Well, I mean, with the jam, we're providing as best we can the outlet for that person to play their favorite song or their favorite genre or their favorite artist or something like that. So, depending on not necessarily their age, but say depending on their age, or what kind of music you like, that's what may take them to a particular place. And talking about the kids, they're walking in with Zeppelin t-shirts and Pink Floyd t-shirts and stuff like that. So being an old guy is like, well, that's kind of, mom and dad have some influence,
yes,
on what these kids are listening to, but they're listening to stuff that, I mean, take some of those older artists and the songs that are just going to flat out last forever. I mean, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, Jess coming in with War Pigs and Sweet Child of Mine,
I mean,
and
you
all
go
that
to
stuff,
go to Money by Pink Floyd. That's always going to be some theme for something.
Yeah.
Sweet Child's always going to be around with Guns N' Roses because it's such a hit and such a powerful band.
Song.
And I mean, I what is there today? And I'm not. But I mean, I'm being serious.
Knock on it, man. It's not there, I mean, like,
serious.
just
in 20 years, when that 20-year-old generation gets to be closer to our age or whatever, is money still going to be around, or is some, I don't know, Justin Timberlake hit? Maybe. We don't know. But I don't know, man. Yeah. It's just, it's kind of, it's funny to think about, but just getting back to the, the parents influencing the kids and all that stuff. But we're really straying here. But giving those people an opportunity to play something that they love, or to come up with a tribute band with your friends of your favorite music, that I don't know, I can't explain the tribute thing, but I agree with you. I think that it has significantly increased across the years. I mean, because, for the longest time, what did you have? You had Elvis impersonators. You would have Beatles tribute bands, right? And you still do. But as there became maybe more infamous music and more influential players and bands that became out there, then that music tree just got wider, and so now there's a lot more artists that aren't around anymore that need to be covered and tributed to. And so I think as the influence of particular artists widened, or the number of artists widened and got greater, then and now they're not around, that may attribute to more tribute bands out there.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. You said something interesting before we started about the rock scene as opposed to like the blues scene and jazz scene. I'm trying to think what you were saying.
Was it about subbing?
Maybe it was it was about subbing and the kind of competition kind of thing happening, and it was something I'm trying to think of.
Well, you talked about the competition or lack thereof.
Yeah,
I think, but
the people fighting for each other's gigs.
I was
That's what we were
talking about.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not in the jazz world at all. I mean, I have friends in it and so forth, but from an outside observation, that scene and even the blues world, that seems to be where musicians will sub for each other or put something together because you're playing a lot, standards all night. And so there's kind of that congruity, you just get that small group that works together and you come together, you work, and poof, you're gone, as opposed to the rock scene where, there's more of a band and, obviously you get into originals and so forth, this isn't going to happen. But when you get into your guys that are doing your regular bar gigs or your private events and so forth, and you need that sub player, you know each other from the network in Kansas City, which I think is great. We've talked about.
Yeah.
And you can call that guy and have him come sub, and maybe he knows 95% of the material, had to do a little bit of prep, walk in, do a gig, and your broken wrist heals up, and you're back in 2 months, and poof, that guy just goes back to his other band, or
Right.
And that I think that's the beauty of it, that we're not out there, intentionally stealing each other's gigs. And I mean, we've probably all seen it. I know I have. It's like you hear of somebody that maybe isn't working out with the band for whatever reason, and so the band is looking to say get rid of them, and not that they're gonna
accidentally not calling back.
Well, but not that they're gonna pick you, but that's kind of like one of those you just want to stay away from it, I mean, I wouldn't certainly walk in, and I know that there's plenty of people that would not just walk in to take that guy's gig. Maybe after a couple months of cool down, after they let him go and explain the situation and everybody's cool and they start looking, then somebody else might come into that gig. But I think, I think that is a lot of the attitude on that, about the comfort of being able to sub your gig out or to take someone's for a temporary time frame and then just walk away from it.
Yeah.
Because all you're doing is you're just working, you're entertaining people. You're helping that band be complete.
I agree with that completely. I know definitely in the jazz world this happens all the time, because it's more of like Lonnie McFadden, and then he has behind him he has any of these random 50 badasses in town who could all just like destroy everything to show, without even practicing,
Yeah.
And the blues is the same way, they have their show, and they could hire, when Jan Faircloth can't do it, from Levittown, you have, another 8 drummers, that could come in and do their shuffles already, and then the funk, okay, and you just, anybody can just sub your show, but rock, that's interesting that rock is more band. It's like the full band, and it kind of doesn't have to be everybody, but it kind of
does. Well, that's kind of what we talked about earlier about what's different about rock.
Yeah.
It's knowing those breaks, knowing those bridges,
right.
knowing those,
Yeah.
and knowing them more than just being able to get a look from somebody to do something.
Yes.
You know? So,
yeah, you play whatever, and then we got one stop. Okay, stop.
Right.
And then you play the rest of
Yeah.
the song. You don't have to really know anything, you know. Yeah. So and then maybe two more here got for you. You guys do a great job of understanding about the crowd. We've talked about the crowd a little bit, and I know one thing that happens that I had to get over as a younger musician was I felt like I was going to have all this integrity, and we're going to play originals, or I'm going to do bebop, and I'm only playing jazz. You know, I'm not doing any of these covers.
Mm-hmm.
That's for scrubs who do cover. You know, and I had all this this ridiculous integrity as I thought. But there's a lot of people that don't look at doing all those crappy songs that nobody wants to do. They don't look at that. They have this different attitude about it. Mm-hmm. And some guys absolutely go, I'm not playing Mustang Sally. No, I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. I quit. You know, I mean, they're just never going to put themselves in that situation because that makes them want to kill themselves. And I think you guys take a different attitude towards that. And like, you know, and I had to realize, I'm like, hold on, Rob, you've got 500 fucking CDs of cover tunes, but you're telling yourself you don't like cover tunes.
Yeah.
This is BS. You're BSing yourself. You know, you love cover tunes. You know, telling myself that. I'm like, so I had to reflip my mentality there. Can you talk a little bit about like your mentality of having to play those, you know,
for the 1,000th time?
Yeah, or why are you guys so okay with having a cover thing? And why is that not bother you or whatever? Or why does
Well, yeah, there's a couple different approaches. Well, there's I think a couple different situations. The first and probably most important is who are you doing it for?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you're one of 3, 4, or 5 on a stage playing to 10 to 500 to people, and you got. I mean, it comes down to that. It comes down to the same feeling as the person that is so freaking excited that they got to sing for the first time with a live band, and they sang Sweet Home Alabama.
Right.
Who cares what song that was? Mm-hmm. You know? So that it goes the same way when you're not hosting an open mic and you're in your 4-piece, the Troubadour Retrievers, and you're an all request band, and there's plenty of there's people that do all request. You know, the bands will always be asking for a song. People are always going to shout out a song, but you know that same answer. It's like you're playing that song for them, and they're going to love it. Mm-hmm. You know, that's one reason that outweighs how much you're so freaking sick of that 1,500th time you've played that song in the same key. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
Now, maybe there's different. You know, one thing that may relieve a little bit of the pain is when you're, say, playing it with different people. Yeah. And so it gets a different feel.
Right.
Maybe a different turnaround, slightly different chord progression, something like that, you know? So that's something that relieves that. But, you know, I think we opened the show up with that. You know, what's your intention? Just as a musician, you know, what kind of gig do you want to play? What kind of music do you want to play? How many people? What kind of people do you want to play with? Do you want to take over the world with your 10 songs that you've spent the last 5 years writing? Mm-hmm. Or do you want to go make some money at a bar doing a silly 4-hour, you know? Or do you want to go to a wedding and play? I mean, you talk about your standard songs, right? At a wedding?
Brick house, wedding fun.
Exactly. play it, man. That's
Yeah.
that's why they're there, and that's what they expect. That's not why they're there,
Right.
but that's what they expect at the after party.
Right.
You know, so I guess you got to get out of your head on it, right?
Mhm.
That's what.
Who's this fun for? That was
Yeah,
the great
that's
line
right.
that you kind of had there. Is who is this really for?
Yeah,
Is this for you or them?
who's it for? Who's hired you? You know, I mean, there's all kinds of aspects to it.
Right.
You know, I mean, and I know this could be an extreme case, and I don't even want to go here, but it's like you could get a patron or a table of patrons that have had plenty of their shots, and they want to hear Mustang Sally, and say the band refuses to play it. Well, they either leave or they complain to the management, and I know it's a silly one-off or whatever,
Right.
but indulge, you know?
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
And Scotty does a great job of this too, and all you guys do this. But he's pretty much the king of this. Is that he plays this song, and he's maybe tired of it or whatever, but you know, he just goes ridiculous on it, right? I mean, he'll just throw in Dazed and Confused in the middle of, you know, he'll make it fun. You know, and that's
Maybe that's what we need to do.
Well, that's his different attitude. That's just a totally different attitude. I'm gonna dread this, and you're gonna see it in my face,
Right.
and the whole audience. Even though I'm playing the song, but Scotty doesn't look like that. His attitude isn't that. His face doesn't look like that. He's gonna play the shit out of this song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though it's Wonderwall for the 900th time, or Mustang Sally, or any of those. And I mean, so is that kind of the key too? Is just the attitude about it, understanding who it's for, but also I'm gonna play this really, really well, no matter what song it is. Is that the attitude?
Well,
that
yeah,
you gotta have?
that's changing your attitude about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you, and like you say, kind of maybe what Scotty does with it. I mean, there's plenty. You know, for me, that it's the same deal. It's just like, could this be any more repetitive
Right.
and slow,
Yeah.
and nothing happening? Right. So I'm gonna make something happen because I'm gonna entertain myself, you know, and I'm gonna not give a negative connotation with being pissed off playing the song, and
Right.
they're not gonna enjoy that.
Right.
So get in your weird world, you know. Do something that's different, you know. Lock up something with your drummer. Do something different. Do something silly. Have some fun with it. So, because you know, you've got to get out. You got to get out of your head. I think you got to get out of your element. It's the same thing, you know. Think of all the artists that might still be on tour that have been touring for. Who is it? Someone's on the radio claiming the 50th year coming up. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But there's enough artists out there that are doing 30 and 40 year. The Stones.
Yeah, right.
Willie Nelson. You know.
9th farewell tour. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But
you know. But I mean, think, and so then they play that song 200 times a year.
Right.
Right? Times 20 or 30 years.
Right, yeah.
Okay? And then they got to deliver it. They got to deliver that song like it's still that number one hit because you watch that place go freaking crazy.
Right.
You know? You will see it, but you will not see the artist leave that one or those multiple hit songs in, you know, backstage.
Right. I saw McCartney, or I didn't see this, but I heard people talking about McCartney when he came, I don't know, it was 4 or 5 years ago, and it was like, I don't know, 7th song of the gig or something, and, you know, all of a sudden he takes off his jacket, and the stage guys come all to get his jacket, and all the girls, woo, you know, and then he looks up like, you know, and looking all surprised, like that's the first time that's ever happened, right? He's been doing that shit for 30 years.
Yeah.
Looking, oh, I can't believe they're screaming right now,
Yeah.
and so that's maybe a little bit what you're talking about, where he knows what this is. He knows that he has to look surprised there because that's part of the act.
And that's exactly what it is.
And
It's a show and it's entertainment.
Yeah, and so like that, he has a different attitude, and there's a reason why they're the biggest band ever. The Beatles. I mean, they're even nowadays. But anyway, that was funny. And some people just can't handle
that's
that.
Funny.
They just chose not.
Act like you've never heard it before, right?
Oh my God, chicks are screaming. Oh, please.
Right.
They screaming for you before you stepped off the plane.
Yeah.
Like in the 50s, they were screaming for you. It's like, I don't know. Anyway, but that's great, man. So last quick one for you. You were talking about a gig that you had one time.
Oh yeah, the great classic story or whatever. It's a road trip story, and it was 2 years ago, I think. 2 years ago, it was me and Scotty and Crystal and Don, and we were going to Iowa, Denison, Iowa. Denison, I think, Denison County Fair, something like that, in their big farmyard or whatever, your fairgrounds. So we're on, I guess, I-29 going up there, and just on the road, all packed in the van. Scotty's drums are in the back, and they got PA at the gig and all that, and all of a sudden we hit a tire tread off of a truck. Pretty significant. Well, okay, so we're driving on, and Crystal and I are sitting back, and she goes, "Feels like it's getting kind of warm in here, right?" And I go, "Yeah, you're right. It's kind of humid. It was June, I think, and so getting a little warmer." And about 1 minute later, Don's like, "Wow, my temperature gauge has dropped down to 0. And I think before that I'd said, "Hey Don, maybe we ought to, see if you lost the front skirt off the van or parts hanging out or something like that." And this is probably transitioned to about 3 minutes. And so anyway, my temperature gauge has gone down to 0. I'm like, pull over. And so he finally takes an exit, and as we're going down the exit, the van just dies. Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew what it was because I've had it happen to me on a car before that, overheated and had gone and all that stuff. And so anyway, we're in the middle of Iowa, not the middle, the west side of Iowa, and we've got a gig in 4 hours maybe, and we're 2 or 2.5 hours. I think we're like maybe, I don't know, we're good 2 hours away from the gig or whatever. Talking, what are we gonna do? I mean, there was even options of calling an Uber van, a cab, to get us to this gig. Wow. So we have this couple that pulls up. They're younger, and they get out of the car, and wow, what's going on? And well, we've overheated and it's leaking antifreeze a little bit by now. What's left in the front of the van? And then this 5-foot blonde, mouth of a sailor woman gets out of the back seat of this car, and she's a diesel mechanic. Oh. And so, well, yeah, we'll get this, fucker fixed and this and that, and we'll tie this up. I'm gonna call my boyfriend. So she calls her boyfriend, and two of them together was like cats spatting and fighting with each other the whole time and stuff. And we gotta our warehouse is on the other side of the highway, so we all hop in this car and leave the van there. And so we're still worrying about how to get to the gig. We talked to the promoter, all these stuff. you know, and you've got cornfields, so it's like Children of the Corn, and you're freaking out because you're in the middle of nowhere with these crazy people and this little 5-foot sailor woman. And Don calls, he's like, oh, my cousin lives up in Nebraska, about an hour away from here. So anyway, he calls his cousin, and his cousin had to get a van. I'm not even going to go into that. Gets a van, drives like an hour, so he's trying to find us off of an exit that doesn't have a street on it, you know, and all of this stuff. And so we're still talking with the promoter and all that stuff. And so we leave Scotty's drums in the van. The other band is gonna just let us backline for us. They're gonna let us use all of their gear.
Was nice. Yeah.
You know, we brought our guitars, obviously, and we made it to that gig and got set up, and were late on Downbeat by 10 minutes.
Wow.
Maybe.
Wow.
And I mean, it was. I cannot tell that story with justice like it would have been being there.
Oh, wow.
I mean, because you don't know what's, you know, and I mean, yeah, you could take the easy way out and, well, we're stranded and our van overheated and we're not going to make the gig. Well, we wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. And it was our second year doing it. And here again, of a band that we kind of just did this with, because those were the people that could do it that way. Mm-hmm. The first year, called on them that way the second year. Right. So the four of us were going up to do that gig again. And so we didn't want to let it go. And man, just the fact of calling his cousin, finally found us on the right exit, drive up there, get to the gig. Wow. No time to spare. Drive back that night, you know, and I mean in his cousin's van that he borrowed. And he literally borrowed it. He didn't steal it, but he borrowed it. But just the whole thing. I mean that's got to be the best road story.
That's crazy, man. I mean, and what's funny about that is how many people kind of came together to get that to happen. All the people that met you guys on the road, and then making sure the bar owner, but then calling the other band.
It was like it was a fairgrounds. It wasn't a bar. It was for the county. County,
right? Yeah, but I mean, thing. Like the other band allowing you guys to use their gear, and I mean, there was a lot of people that came together to help you guys. And that little gal was determined to put a tie strap around that radiator and drive it the rest of another hour and a half. I think is how far we were out. Wow. You know, but yeah, just I mean. Country folk helping you on the road, determined to get you there, and we got there. That's really nice. That's awesome. So now tire treads are the danger on the road. Like, don't watch out for that tire tread. That's stuff that is just you can't predict that stuff, and you can't beat that stuff either. That's one of the reasons why we are musicians, is because we don't like to just do boring crap all the time. Like this is why we do it, not to get stranded, but when you go through something like this, it's something you'll never forget. I know. It's like, and how worth it was that? Right. And I mean, and that just develops stronger friendships with the people you gig with, because we've done plenty of out of town stuff that have been, crazy wild nights to sit back and like, you think I'm gonna stay in that broken down trailer home thing down here, type of stuff. And so just it is. It's quite the experience. Just the stuff you go through when you're on the road or even at gigs. Usually, tell Kelly I always usually have a story when I come home from jam night. There was this one guy or this one gal, and it could be. Phenomenal, some guy from out of town that just was like, wow, or it could be some crazy other drunk event or something, so there's always a story. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I think that's probably about it. You guys need to come check out Jam Night at Jerry's Jam Night. Every Wednesday in Lenexa right now at 8 o'clock. Yeah, that's awesome. It's a really fun jam. You guys always run it impeccably, and I always have fun playing with you guys, and it's a good time. So this has been Bret Boule. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
This is fun. So anyway, get out of here. We'll see you later.